Hello and welcome back to another episode of Tyler's Tiger Talk. So LSU defeats Grambling 72-10. And this video won't be too long because you can't take too much from games like these when you're playing teams like Grambling. But I do want to talk about the important stuff, especially the defense. I feel like anyone could have watched that game on Saturday and saw how atrocious the defense was in the beginning. That game could have been a lot closer for a long while. Obviously, LSU was still going to win that game no matter what, but it could have been closer. Grambling drove downfields 3 times in a row. Luckily, they had a field goal and they had missed field goal, so they only had 10 points. But those 10 points could have almost been 21. And LSU, they would have been in that game a lot longer than they needed to. LSU's defense against the run game didn't look good. Or when they were being passed upon, they were being out schemed in the first half, and it just wasn't a good look for LSU in the beginning. Jaden Daniels in the wide receivers looked a lot better, although there was that drop by Brian Thomas in the beginning that was very frustrating because it was a wide open pass. It was going vertical. It looked good. He was open. It was a perfect throw by Jaden Daniels, and he dropped it. So we just need to have those little tune-ups with catching because Brian Thomas is such a talented physical receiver. He's a guy you want to trust and throw the ball up to, but he has to catch the ball along with Kyron Lacey. Malik Neighbors had a very good game. He's your best receiver, obviously. I'd like to see him get involved more. Last year, it was Keyshawn Butte you were talking about that didn't get involved as much. Now it's Neighbors. You didn't see too much of Neighbors in the Florida State game. You saw him a lot this game, so that was good. You go on the road, go to Starkville, play Mississippi State. Let's hope your defense stays strong. Mississippi State's going to love to throw that ball all around you. So that defense needs to make crucial stops or even hold Mississippi State to field goals. LSU's good at that. LSU has a very good red zone defense. But LSU needs to stay strong and be able to defend the pass because Mississippi State's going to throw the ball on Saturday. They're going to throw the ball. It's an early game. Let's hope LSU can get it done. It's one of those 11 a.m. games. But I truly believe LSU can win this game easy if they stay better in coverage, able to stop the run game and perform downfield like they have been. One thing a lot of people always complain about is, Jaden Daniels is only getting like 7-8 yards a pass. Why aren't we going for more passes beyond 15 yards, et cetera, et cetera? I think that's stupid. I think when people say stuff like that, they don't know football. They're going to expect to see what LSU did against Grambling, against other SEC opponents, and you just can't expect that. It's obviously easy to do that against Grambling because they don't have as good of DBs as the SEC and other big conferences, but you're not going to be able to do that a lot. I don't mind 5-yard passes to a running back out of the backfield who then gains 15. I don't mind Malik Neighbors on a little crossing route for 10 yards, and then he puts it upfield for another 15. I don't mind those things because that's productive offense. Jaden Daniels, yes, sometimes he needs to let the ball go and air it out, but you're going to see that he's going to make the safest read most of the time. Something people don't understand is, they need to start understanding is before the play starts, Jaden Daniels has a targeted receiver. Like, he's going to choose the best read. Whether that read is, Kyron Lacey this play, he's the target for this play. You're looking at Kyron Lacey first, And then if the play doesn't develop, he doesn't get open, you look downfield. That's how plays work most of the time. He's looking for a targeted receiver. So when people are like, he's just staring at Kyron Lacy the whole time and yada, yada, yada. Yes, because that's how the play is designed for him to do. Yes, he obviously needs to develop, be able to look all around. And he did a lot of that during the game. There was a long, I think it was Brian Thomas, it was Malik Neighbors on a pretty much a go route. The read was Kyron Lacy, but he saw that Kyron wasn't as open as Malik Neighbors was, even though Kyron Lacy was the target receiver, and he threw it up to Neighbors, and he just overthrew it a little, but it would have been a bomb. So you just got to realize, if you're a fan of football, I always see a lot of it. It's like Jaden Daniels needs to look downfield more and throw the ball downfield. We need, like, this is not 2019 LSU. Like, even that 2019 LSU, there wasn't always bombs. You had bombs every now and then, but it wasn't like that. One thing I love LSU doing, and they showed a little bit of it, was going 5 wide, spreading out the receivers. I think that's crucial to have on an offense in college football now, is spreading your receivers out, making that defense having to man you up, spreading your receivers out. I love that look. I love that look because you have such talented receivers that you know at least one of them is going to get open if you go in that 5 wide look. It reminds me a little bit of 2019 LSU when they were doing that. You had so many talented receivers, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall, whoever it was. One of them guys were going to get open, and I love that look from LSU. Because I think it gives them the best chance with the team they have, the receivers they have, to get a guy open. Whether it's 5 wide, putting Malik Neighbors on a crossing route, a tight end, or someone on a comeback route, just whatever, out route, whatever, and just letting Jaden Daniels pick the defense apart. But yeah, like I said, this game, when we went vertical a lot, Jaden Daniels looked very, very good. And I think we saw on Saturday, even though it was against Grambling, why Jaden Daniels is the starter. Again, another important point that people are not getting or understanding. When Jaden Daniels is doing good and he's killing teams with his legs or his arm, people jump on the train. But the minute LSU plays a really good team, gets out-coached, outplayed, maybe the receivers aren't doing as well, it all goes on Jaden Daniels. We need nuss bus. Listen, guys. A fucking year ago, against Southern, Nussbus, and I love Nussmeier. I love his arm. I love how he can go downfield with the ball. I think he does have a better arm than Jaden Daniels. Obviously, don't think that's a question. But he did throw 2 interceptions and almost threw 3 interceptions against Southern. Southern did very well in the Georgia game when we threw him in because Jaden Daniels was busted up. But there is a reason Jaden Daniels is QB1, and there's a reason Nussmeier's QB2 and will take the helm next year. There's obviously better quarterback. I don't think our coaches that coach for a living and make money off this think they know what they're talking about. I think they know what they're doing when they're keeping Jaden Daniels in at QB1. The dude is a threat. If you watch him run, he's just as good as any running back there is in college football right now. He's the best QB when he is running in college football, in my opinion. And I do mean just running. I don't think Jaden Daniels is the best QB in college football yet. I think he can get there. I think he's a huge threat. But right now, running, he's such a good runner. He's athletic. He's agile. He makes guys miss more than any quarterback I've seen. He's like a Lamar Jackson. He makes guys miss with his legs, and he makes plays that you wouldn't expect to get yards from, and he can pick up 10, 15 yards, even if it's 5 yards sometimes. if a play's blown up, Jaden Daniels has the best chance of making a blown up play and getting yards from it. I think if the offensive line does a bad job and the D linemen or linebackers get through on Nussmeier, it's most likely going to be a sack. With Jaden Daniels can drive downfield. You saw it on Saturday, making guys miss. The dude is insane on his legs. I love watching him. I do. I obviously, like I said, I love Nussmeier. I love what he can do with the arm. But there's a reason Jaden Daniels is QB1. One other thing I wanted to talk about, that's not really pertaining too much to this game itself, but just SEC as in general. Because I've been seeing a lot of, SEC this, SEC this. There's no more SEC anymore. SEC is being taken over. Like, Texas chanting SEC after they defeated Alabama, and a good win for Texas. But what the fuck has Texas done in the past few decades? What have they done? Please tell me. Look at each national championship in the past 20 years and see how many SEC teams won the national championships. I can go through it right now if I wanted to. East national championships, and not just in football either. Let's go baseball. SEC doesn't run the basketball as much, but let's go basketball. I would love to see it there because SEC has dominated football for years, and they continue to do it. Georgia, 2 national championships in a row. Alabama, 2 national championships in a row. 2019, LSU wins a national championship. I mean, it's either Alabama, Georgia, almost every year. In the past past 20 years, it's been LSU a few times. Let's look it up now. Football. I don't have this number memorized. National championships from, let's just say, 2000 to now. Because I don't think people understand. I don't think people understand. 2022, Georgia. 2021, Georgia. 2020, Alabama. 2019, LSU. Clemson won in 18. Alabama wins in 17. This is when it was back-to-back, like Clemson, Alabama. 16, Clemson. 15, Alabama. Ohio State won it in 14. Florida State in 13 with Jameis Winston. That was a really good team. Alabama in 12, Alabama in 11, Auburn in 10, Alabama in 9, Florida in 08, LSU in 07, Florida in 06. Texas hasn't won a national championship since 2005. Southern California in 04, and LSU in 03, and then the rest are, so since 03, SEC, LSU. 06, Florida. 07, LSU. 08, Florida. 09, Alabama. 10, Auburn. 11, Alabama. 12, Alabama. 15, Alabama. 17, Alabama. I can't even, up until now, I can't even count on both hands how many national championships the SEC has in football alone. And yet, the SEC is the most overrated conference in all of college football. SEC is the most overrated. Obviously, the SEC is taking a big hit. That's coming from me. They're taking a big hit, obviously, with NIL and transfer portal. SEC's been getting, dominated. Obviously, we're still good in the transfer portal as LSU, Georgia, Alabama. But what I mean by that is now that the transfer portal and NIL are available, the other conferences are starting to catch up a little more. And it's fun. And another thing about Texas chanting SEC at the end of the game, it's hilarious because they're coming to the SEC in a couple of years. So in a year, so I don't know why they would be chanting that. You're going to be in our conference soon, but SEC is dominated. I can look up the same question for baseball, and it probably be similar. I mean, SEC continues to dominate in one of the two biggest sports there is, baseball and football. The SEC dominates, and yet SEC is overrated. The SEC will be the best conference for years on out. I don't know. I mean, LSU, Ole Miss. I'm counting baseball national championships. LSU in reverse order. So LSU wins it this year. Ole Miss last year. Mississippi State. 2020 got canceled. Vanderbilt. Florida in 17. Vanderbilt in 14. South Carolina in 11. South Carolina in 10. LSU in 09. Like a lot of SEC teams, and I mean, apparently the SEC is just overrated, right? In almost every sport, they're overrated. I mean, I just don't understand that narrative. Georgia can win the national championship this year. Alabama still can come back and win it. LSU still has a chance to make the playoff if they beat Alabama, if they win the SEC West. I mean, I don't know why you're saying we are overrated. The SEC is not overrated. Yes, Missouri will always fucking suck. Yes, Vanderbilt will always suck. And I'm talking about football. Vanderbilt will always fucking suck. But what did Tennessee look like last year? I mean, LSU making it to the pretty far last year. What did Alabama look like last year? Almost sneaking into the playoffs. Georgia obviously winning the national championship last year. I mean, Florida upsetting Utah. Like, Florida was not supposed to win the past couple games against Utah, and they won last year. A bad Florida team beat an overrated good Utah team. I just don't I can't understand this narrative anymore that the SEC is overrated. I think it's fucking ridiculous, and it'll stop eventually. Especially if an SEC team wins it again this year, it'll stop. People will shut the fuck up and realize that, oh man, maybe the SEC is the best conference in all of sports, and maybe the SEC does have the best talent, and the South does have the best talent in all of college football. I mean, I don't understand that narrative, and I'm gonna stop talking about that because I don't want to make that most of my video, but it is an important point because I keep on seeing it a lot, especially after LSU lost to Florida State, after South Carolina lost to North Carolina, after Alabama lost to Texas this weekend. I keep on seeing SEC overrated a lot. But yeah, so like I said, LSU and Grambling. The biggest things to take away from this game is how exposed our secondary is right now. Yes, and that opening drive, Grambling's receivers made some good plays, but it was like, okay, we need to find some guys that can actually cover and that can actually engage with the ball when it is in the air, when it is going to the wide receiver or cornerback, safety, whoever needs to make a play on that ball. Man-to-man has not looked good for LSU the past two games. It hasn't. No matter who it is, it seems like our guys are getting beat. They're getting mossed. I mean, that incredible play that Grambling wide receiver made in the end zone where he just barely got his foot in. You had plays like that. I mean, the LSU couldn't stop the run game for a while. That was a big problem. What happens when you go up against a team like Ole Miss in a few weeks and they have a really good running back in Judkins? What happens when an SEC running back like Judkins goes up against you? Can you stop that? Like, it just scares me because that was such a problem last year with LSU, was their inability to stop the run. I mean, it was scary. It's been a problem for LSU for a while, stopping the run. But we'll see when we get there. I think the biggest necessity this game against Mississippi State is stopping the pass. What can your DBs do this weekend is what matters the most, because they're gonna need to look good. They're gonna need to be able to play man defense against a Mississippi State that the past few years has slung the ball around. We'll see, but LSU, like I said, LSU has a big chance, especially after Alabama losing to Texas. In my mind, I was scared. I was like, Alabama, everyone's coming up against Alabama and saying the dynasty's over, Alabama's over. I was like, no, I don't want to say that too quick, because Alabama's always such a good team, but they like LSU, like worse than LSU, they don't have a quarterback. Milroe can sling the ball, and it's a beautiful ball that he can throw, but he's having the problem, a little bit similar problems that Jaden Daniels had last year. So I do think LSU has the better quarterback. Alabama had similar problems, like I said, like LSU's been having with the secondary. Alabama, those Texas receivers were cooking Alabama's defense. Ewers was throwing wherever he wanted. So we'll see. But LSU can capture the West, obviously. It wasn't a question going into the season, but now it's looking better for LSU, even with the loss to Florida State, because that Florida State team's number 3 in the country and probably going to go undefeated. So if LSU can capture the West, they can for sure win the rest of these games. I'm much more confident than I was last year about LSU winning these games. So that's that. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the Mississippi State game, because I do need to talk. I do need to watch a little more, because I didn't watch the Mississippi State game this year, so I want to go through that game and see what they brought, so I can kind of get a feel for what LSU needs to do to stop them. But yeah, LSU looked very good. They cleaned up a lot of the messes that they had against Florida State. The O-line looked incredible. I'd like to see some more pressure from the D-line. Obviously stopping the run I talked about, but I'd like to see more pressure on the quarterback. That D-line is way too good. We have really good linebackers to not be getting more pressure than we have been. Listen, leave a comment down below, a question, statement, whatever. I love reading those. I love interacting. Leave a like. Consider subscribing. And that's it for this video. As always, go Tigers.